Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cryptonized. Joining us is Les Borsai with my co-host Amanda Whitcraft. Today, we're going to talk about NFTs. You know what my position is on NFTs? It's some of it is good, others it's like Fantasyland, Alice in Wonderland. So let's get into it with Les. But before we do so, Les, would you give a little bit of a background about yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me, guys. My career has mainly been in the entertainment business, and I'm going to try to take this long-winded story and kind of really summarize it quickly. When I was a kid in the 80s, I brought over a lot of the first rave bands from London and kind of other European markets in New York, and I brought them to Los Angeles, and this is actually going to have an impact on my career and story. So I became a concert promoter, and from there, ended up continuing, down the entertainment rabbit hole and worked at MCA Universal Records at the bright young age of 22, heading up tour marketing. And from there, I went to Silicon Valley and kind of had a love affair with technology and content. Worked for one of the early kind of enhanced CD companies. Came back and managed artists. Worked in a partnership with a guy named Bill Silva, managed artists like Jason Mraz and others, and kind of continued down the management rabbit hole and just kind of woke up and decided I didn't want to do that anymore. And that's when I really kind of accelerated more into technology. And the technology component was things like doing one of the first mobile apps that was a karaoke app with real artist masters with Lady Gaga, and or doing an SMS platform on a Beyonce tour to generate additional revenue. And it was right around then that I looked at the, huge price of Bitcoin at $200 a coin and thought, geez, there has to be another Bitcoin. So what I ended up doing, just to kind of accelerate the story about cryptocurrency, is I found Ripple, and it was 2013. And I found a kid who had built one of the first wallets for Ripple and ended up convincing Ripple they needed an advisor that had something to do with entertainment. So I became an advisor for Ripple in 2013. In 2014, I muddled my way through the Ethereum presale. I didn't really know much about technology, but somehow figured out how to download a JSON wallet and get a whole bunch of ETH. And then kind of continued down that path and was like, oh, the DAO, that's interesting. Let's do that. And Filecoin, what's that? And just kind of stayed on that path. Not long after that, I hooked up with a friend of mine who I'd been friends with for a long time named David Seymour. He had been a venture capitalist since 1994, mainly had some pretty large funds in Southeast Asia, and hooked up with another guy named Ben Tsai, who had been at Merrill and Alliance Bernstein doing alternative products and a lot of, clear finance guy, straight up finance guy. And we kind of knew there would be an institutional turn with cryptocurrency. So in late 2017, 2018, we formed Wave Financial, which is an asset manager. And we now have about 600 million in AUM. So we're one of the largest registered investment advisors in cryptocurrency at this point.
Okay, and now you've dove into NFTs. Is that where your crypto investment focus is?
Well, not as a company. It's a portion of the company. We'll be launching an NFT fund, and I reluctantly kind of agreed to it because coming from music, going back to kind of the rave culture thing, music is so based on community, and I think the NFT culture is based on community in a lot of ways, and there's different aspects to NFTs. So I really didn't want to, I just didn't understand the connection between an asset manager and NFTs and collectibles. But Ben kind of explained it to me. A lot of the big funds have, alternative investment funds, that are art. Obviously, I collect art as well. And so it wasn't going to be our focus, but it would be a portion of the company's focus moving forward now.
Let's dive into NFTs. So my position, Les, is NFTs are good for some things. I would say like maybe co-owning real estate or something like that. That's just an investment property, almost like a REIT, if you will. So that to me is something, when an NFT is attached to physical products, I just don't understand. And believe me, I've been in the NFT industry. I don't understand the digital aspects of it long term. Like when I was, I was part of working with a company that did a deal with Topps. So bring their cards into digital form. And then there was a rush to invest, and there's a lot of people collecting. But I'm like, all of these cards can be copied by me or you when we see it online. We just copy it, and then we have it in our photo stash. Yeah, we don't have ownership of it on the blockchain, but I still have a copy of it. So, and it's digital. So who cares if it's not, if it was physical card, that's one thing, but it's digital. So help me understand the value of these digital NFTs going forward.
I think there's a lot to unpack there. And why don't we start with, where my head was at when I got into it. So about 4 months ago, I felt, one of the benefits from coming from the entertainment business is you like to address things early. There's a reward in finding artists early. There's a reward in finding, really interesting technologies and groups of people early. And one of the things that was a big learning factor for me was a platform called Avagache. And I'm going to answer your question in a second. And these guys were so on the cutting edge with all of the things that NFTs could do. There was a gamification component. There was a DeFi connected to NFT component. There was, your ability to generate revenue with an NFT. And I was just blown away. So in a couple of days, I ended up becoming an advisor to Avagache and sticking an artist in the platform. We'll talk about that in a minute. I went down this rabbit hole because, you have to. And I was getting up at 6:30 and like looking at this stuff till 11. And I was also a collector. I wasn't a very good collector, but I was a sports card collector as well. And I just loved the process of finding, the rarity and the scarcity and the treasures and, holding onto those cards and letting them kind of create value. So, when you talk about a print of a print of a print, that really isn't anything different than what the traditional art markets are. I have sets of prints that are authentic prints from the artist, and yet, the access point for other people who might enjoy that art may be a bit too high in terms of what the price is. So there's licensed versions of those prints that sell for, less money because they're not part of the series, as is an original painting. If I have an original painting, there's nothing stopping anyone from taking a picture in the real world of that painting and showing people, or going to a museum, or having different versions. So I think, the concept of the value is in, my wallet. You can't take that value away. And, if I go buy an NFT and I'm airdropped another NFT, those are the benefits of owning that NFT. So I don't really look at it like you can replicate and duplicate an NFT. The real NFT is the real NFT, the same way a real painting is a real painting.
The real painting has got real paint, a real signature, and it's on your wall. Now, yes, you could get somebody to replicate that. I don't know how it could be an exact copy, though, offline. Online.
Well, that's what prints are. I have prints on my wall, lithograph.
It's just a G clay. It doesn't have the texture. It doesn't have the real paint, and I guess you could have a real signature. It's always numbered.
Now you're talking about the definition of art and what is and isn't art. And, I have Samsung frames throughout my house. And, often I put up an image on my Samsung frame that hangs the same way a painting does. And, I'm sure some people want to feel the paint. I don't go around, touching my paintings. It's just not something I would do ever. So at the end of the day, I have this Richard Prince joke. And I just look at the thing every day, and I don't think about the texture of it. I don't think about it, the value of it. I just read the joke because it makes me laugh.
The NFT that would in fact be duplicated is originally digital, correct?
The NFT that would be duplicated?
That would be.
Yeah, it can be.
You can as a digital item. So
it doesn't have to. There have been NFT sales and continue to be that, are taking an actual physical piece of art and having a digital counterpart to that, and they sell it as a pair. And there's more of that coming, where we're going to see that happening. Or you can take something that had been created and replicate that into an NFT. So.
How does it stay in one place? So you have the digital representation of that NFT and you have the physical. How do you keep them connected when the ownership changes?
Well, I mean, there's all sorts of, look, I mean, at the end of the day with the digital one, it's easy. If it's in my wallet, how do you keep the two pieces connected? I suppose you don't have to. I mean, I could give the physical one to you, Mark, and keep the digital one if I feel like doing that. But, I don't know that is the thing that really matters in the end. I could give all my artwork to Amanda or split it up between you two, and I think that doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, if I buy an NFT that's digital and it's in my wallet and I get a physical piece, I'll hang it in my house and they'll be together. If I leave the house, I'll have the digital NFT with me. So wherever I go, it'll come with me.
Would you say that the physical piece would have more value than the one that was made digitally that can be replicated and wouldn't have as much meaning because it's digital?
I think it's too general a statement. I mean, CryptoPunk just sold its Sotheby's for $11.8 million. It's a really early kind of industry. CryptoPunks came out in 2017. We're talking about art being around much, much, much longer. I'd say it's off to a pretty good start. I think curation's going to kind of shake out, and we're going to see things that will accelerate in value. I really look at the NFT market kind of in multiple ways. There's many kinds of NFTs, and they're changing. And really, when I first looked at the NFT market, looking at a lot of the marketplaces, I wasn't that impressed by them. I didn't think they were good for artists, whether they were musicians or fine artists, because it just felt like a treadmill. And, artists should be treated special. So I think what we're seeing now is more dedicated sites, more kind of decentralized sites where artists are going to be able to be the platform versus being integrated into what I like to call, the eBay of art. It's great to be the biggest artist on eBay, I guess. But having said that, as much as I want to complain about that, I mean, it's not perfect. I mean, I bought 2 fraudulent NFTs, and, you take the hit. But I buy a lot of them too. So just the last thought there, regardless of how good or bad the platforms are, I find myself spending all my time on OpenSea. So, this is what we have today.
In my opinion, and then Amanda, please chime in. This is like NFT V1. I don't see a lot of value in it. I think what we're going to see is version 2 of NFTs, which are, hey, you own this NFT, and via smart contracts, it kicks off these 100 things. You get the next song from the artist. You get a reduced ticket from the artist. You get to be a special chat with them once a month, almost like a membership or something like that. I think the next generation of NFTs will be the valuable ones. This is just like replicating what we have in real life to me, which isn't as valuable because I'd rather have the physical, baseball card than a digital one that Amanda can copy and give away to her friends. That's just me.
I think we're talking about two different things, because the next generation is this generation, in a way. So if you think about, what you're talking kind of about one specific genre aspect. My opinion is the biggest problem I think people have with art that hangs on their wall is, let's say they want to take some money out of it. You got to give it to an auction house. You have to wait till the right cycle, the right contemporary artists are selling, or whatever the kind of format is, and that could be 6 months to get liquidity out of a piece of art. Well, today, as we look at some of the decks that are emerging, for the ability to trade art, the ability to stake art, you can have immediate liquidity with a piece of digital art that you've just purchased. So, I would say, in my opinion, don't look at the art for the art. Look at the underlying technology, because that's what you're really investing in, and technology moves quickly. So waiting for the next kind of iteration, well, that iteration's here. And when I think about what the future looks like, if I'm able to pull resources out of a digital piece of art that I purchase, well, that's really interesting. And take it a step further, the DeFi guys are really smart. They took a look at the existing financial, systems and said, what, how can we generate more interest for our community? How can we just remove the centralized authority, plop up this platform, that can pay you 30% interest? They made a market. I think they feel really similar about the art world. You take a look at the art world, an artist gives up half of what he earns to a gallery in a lot of cases, and collectors at that gallery or that gallery itself become the market makers. They're paying for the art and they're setting the prices. And I think these DeFi guys, who've done a really great job with finance are thinking in the same way. If we can create markets around, local artists, and, really kind of accelerate that community and that economy, and artists can make more money doing this, I think that's a good thing. And that's really some of the ways I look at it. I mean, obviously that goes much, much deeper when you start to get into the metaverse aspects and, being able to take a, NFT and have it be an AR artifact or, your identity like everyone's doing. Even Jay-Z did it this week, taking a crypto punk and making it his profile.
Right. Have you seen any pushback, Les, from, and I come from the entertainment industry like yourself, and I represent an artist right now. And as we all know, sometimes it's not so much about the money for them as it is their work and their pride for their work. Have you seen any pushback with people wanting this feature?
No, I mean, what I've seen is lots and lots and lots of phone calls, when all of this kind of exploded, a handful of months ago. I mean, phone calls have slowed down now, but I still get one or two a day, kind of saying, how do we create this revenue stream for ourselves? And the reason is, look, when you take a look at traditional music artists, the masters and publishing are typically owned by someone else. Very few assets, can be created that the artist can own outright, and this is one of them. If an artist decides that he wants to create art and put it out there in the form of an NFT, he gets to keep that money. She gets to keep that money. And, we haven't seen a lot of that. So I think that's why there was such a big interest in it, in terms of the way these things have launched.
Do you see anything, I mean, you're looking for these investments. Do you see anything that's really cool that you're like, wow, I mean, they really get it, and this is really a big value add to the NFT community?
Yeah. So I think This Is Ito is one of those things. Ito, AITO. I think, they've done a really good job. I had a couple of fingers in that, helping a little bit with the music side. So it's not really self-serving, because what they did it on their own, definitely with no input from me. And that's really supporting the artist community and leaning towards supporting fine artists by buying their works. And I thought that was just like this amazing thing, and I watched them go from no followers to about 23,000 in 2 months. And on Twitter, that's a feat. And it's because they built a community. And I think that's the other thing a lot of these, DeFi guys do well, is they build communities around the DAOs that they've built out. And, those communities support each other. Another one is Universe XYZ. They just launched polymorphs over the weekend, and they sold 10,000 in about 25 minutes. And again, it's another, when people say kind of the NFT world is dead, well, it kind of is, but it kind of isn't. Again, it goes back to that community thing, and what community are you connected to, and what are you putting out there? The polymorph thing is amazing because scarcity and rarity have been pretty consistent on NFTs, how you value them. There's tools emerging like rarity tools that look at the scarcity and rarity of the features and properties of these NFTs. And what polymorphs did is put this technological kind of implementation in to allow you to change traits. So you can pay to change traits. So now it's not about the scarcity of the trait. It might be, well, I got this polymorph and I want him to have a full astronaut, outfit. So let me see if I can get the torso and the pants and the boots. And then all of a sudden they're changing the dynamic of how people interact. So I think the gaming component and the metaverse component, we're not hitting the tip of the iceberg with that. When you go into, Decentraland or Crypto Voxels or some of these places, we haven't even begin to see how NFTs are going to emerge in those environments.
Well, that was my point earlier, I guess, where if you can add on to these NFTs, Gen 2, and then imagine moving that astronaut character into different games with the similar attributes, and then being able to trade outside a game, inside a game, and just build that character up, and that character's attributes carry from game to game. Now, there's going to be game dynamics, so maybe not all of them carry over, but what a cool thing to do is you have these characters that you can build up via these NFT marketplaces that have been around for a while. Wax was involved in them.
Yeah,
there's a few other companies that were involved in them. And that I think is exceptional. And then you could sell off things that you've created or found in these worlds, which is being done. But I think the next level is going to be very, very interesting in gaming. What about DeFi and NFTs? I see a huge potential there that hasn't been tapped yet.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing I'm really connected to. But just to comment on your other point, I was very surprised when I put on my Oculus Quest that my friend Rahila made me, Rahila, I got to give this girl a shout out. Rahila came from Consensus, early on, and she's a dear friend of mine. And, she continually pushes me to look at new things and new boundaries. And, every time I get lost in that kind of centralized world, she pulls me back. And she gave me an Oculus Quest. And I'm like, dude, I'm 53. I'm not putting this thing on. And, I put it on, and it's like, holy shit, this is a whole new world. And I was very surprised to see, the Me bit that I bought was right there in my identity. And it's going to be interesting, I think, to see the dynamics between things like Facebook avatars and NFT avatars and what are going to be more robust. I mean, obviously the NFTs are going to carry more value, but when you think about the place I'm really passionate is the DeFi NFTs. The ability to stake an NFT and create a return on a collectible is amazing. And when you talked about tokenization earlier with real estate, I mean, I think that's where we're going to see some issues because sharding is going to be very different than tokenization. One of them is going to have security, regulation components to it, and the other one probably won't. So I think we're going to see the DeFi world really open up. But the thing that is most interesting, I think, on the DeFi side for me is the way the DAOs work and the way the communities really respond to things that are being created within their environment. And I think that's why we've seen Ethereum and Ethereum-based projects do so well. But having said that, Cardano's releasing some things that are really interesting. Nem is releasing things. You just saw a deal yesterday with Katy Perry and I can never pronounce it. Teta. It's Stephen Yu and Justin from Stephen from YouTube and Justin from Twitch. THETA, that's how it's spelled. But they just did a deal with Katy Perry and her Vegas performances that came out yesterday. So we are seeing it kind of evolve and have the physical components to NFTs connected with the digital components, which is really interesting too.
One of the things I think is going to be really cool in the future is this: if you have a wallet, for example, and let's just say you put a Disney NFT, an ESP NFT, and an ABC NFT, and again, I'm just making this up, and they just all happen to be in your wallet. I think that could trigger something, that happens automatically. Like you talk about collecting things. Well, what if you complete a collection and then a reward is unlocked with the brand? I mean, I think a brand would be very smart to do that. On the DeFi side, I think if you collect certain DeFi NFTs, it could trigger this circular, let's say, reward system that increases the overall portfolio because you're holding all of these DeFi NFT tokens. They're working against each other, maybe reallocating. So if you have too much gold and it's a hot market, the wallet automatically reallocates it to another NFT. I mean, there's so many possibilities and this is what I'm trying to uncover. What does Gen 2 of DeFi and NFTs look like? And I think it's going to be something like that. But I don't know.
I mean, it already is in some ways. When I look at like the market as a whole, CryptoPunks started it. And then for me, like really the next, it wasn't CryptoKitties, although, they had that component of breeding and that was interesting. And I always look at the technology and this stuff. And then we had MeBits and, that's where the AR, VR components come in. But then we had the Bored Ape Yacht Club. And what was really interesting about that is it's exactly what you're talking about. I bought a couple of apes and, then they launched physical merchandise and it was crazy what it was selling for. It was just like through the roof. And then, they start to create this metaverse and then they airdrop or they drop, these Bored Ape Kennel Club. So they give us dogs. And it was crazy. I got these 2 dogs and I didn't know what they were. And I was getting these ridiculous offers for them because I had the apes. So that was the reward. I mean, just to put it in context of money, not to talk about money, but I bought these 2 apes for, well, it doesn't matter what I bought them for. The the offers within the next month, once I got the dogs, and once the dogs were revealed, and once the apes started kind of to really escalate in price, it was unbelievable. And if I was looking at it from kind of with glasses of this is an investment, it's an incredible investment, but I wasn't. I was just kind of interested in the collecting aspect of it, and that's what you're talking about. These dogs that we got were just super strange and rare. And I think the hardest part about it, to your point, is discerning what you think is a quality project and what isn't a quality project. And, you have that kind of approach to it with the Web3 elements and the metaverse elements, but then you have fine art too. There's artists like Lorona and, Slimy Skater, who I love, and a lot of artists, kind of on the rareable side or the foundation side or super rare, that are emerging, and people are supporting those artists because they're really good. And then you have traditional artists that are trying to enter the NFT space, and that's also interesting. When you have RAC or a Blau, doing the numbers they were doing, and real artists, sorry, they're real artists. That's fucked up. Traditional signed artists, are not doing those numbers. It's this other interesting dynamic that's happening. And people who don't know, Blau and RAC and, Dylan and all these guys, they've been around crypto, and, being a crypto native and connected to it is really rewarded.
Are the NFTs that take off and become something that are investment worthy, is that just random? Is there a strategy behind what you can collect and know that that's going to go on to become something of value?
I think, you have a lot of indicators right now what's going to be valuable. And I always, again, compare everything to my music career. And everyone knew Nirvana would be Nirvana, when they did Bleach. It was something that was talked about. And when you look at the outlets for NFTs, whether it's Discord, whether it's Twitter, and it's really Discord, and being part of those groups, the same way Reddit was, the driver for ICOs in 17 and before. If it was on Reddit, you could kind of figure out what was coming next. But Discord is the place that lives and breathes right now. And again, I think you can assess that here. If someone is, buying Bored Apes or Wicked Craniums, you can see the things that have momentum. And, you don't have to jump right in. And sadly, I seem to do that all the time, is just jump into everything. It's becoming a really expensive, bad habit. You can also see kind of the acceleration of the things that are going to take hold, and you can decide to participate or not. And what I've found myself doing is kind of taking a look at some of that acceleration, and instead of kind of buying lots of them like Pranksy does, who's just a genius, I'm really picking the quality NFTs that I want in those cases. And I think there's also just a belief system on what you think is good. It doesn't have to be about the money or the investment strategy. And, my collector side, when I was collecting sports cards, and they weren't even good sports cards, they were hockey cards. They just taught me the trade. I liked hockey. That was always kind of like when I was young, and I'm like, okay, well, how do I trade up? And, with this, it's more about, I kind of like that. I'm going to go ahead and hold on to that.
Excellent. So I have a kind of a point to make about the whole music industry. So it sounds like you're involved in that. If I were an emerging artist, I think I'd sell NFTs to my next song. And I think that would help build community. It'd help build some money to help me record and do these things. And then once the song hit, and if it was a hit, the NFTs would be a lot more. I'd be able to sell off whether the NFT is just a single lyric or a scene from my music video or whatever. That could be used as kind of a Kickstarter type approach to getting these songs made. But I'm sure there's more innovative people that can think of a better use case for NFTs for songs.
No, I think at the core, that's exactly it. And if you take, your question earlier about DeFi and NFTs is, if you take a look at Avagache, which I think was one of the first ones to actually stick cryptocurrency inside an NFT, that's really interesting because the cryptocurrency, can either accelerate or decrease in value, but you have the collectible value as well that can almost act as, as a hedge of some sorts. So, now you have these multiple values, one that's really volatile and one that's probably more inclined to continue to rise. like art does. But as you apply that to music, sure, NFTs, you're going to have the ability to change what those NFTs do. You're going to be able to shard music and create these experiences where everyone can own a piece of a song, literally, a note. You put those notes together and create a song. You're going to get a different experience. You can then, go into the metaverse with that artist. You're going to be able to sell rights. I mean, the secondary royalty attributions that are, that's the greatest thing with NFTs. Artists never get paid on secondary sales, and I don't care if that's a fine artist or a musician. The ability to put that into a smart contract and let an artist continue to get paid for the work they created is really cool. Selling those rights, doing that in an NFT to get your career started. I just think, there's so much more here that's evolving to unpack. It's never just been about, oh, that's a piece of art, that's what the value is, let me buy it and hold it. It's more along the lines of, well, what are the other things you can do? And you can collaborate with amazing video artists and musicians and create these new pieces that are visual collaborations that actually have a distribution.
I do believe that NFTs, just like with Bitcoin, before we knew it was digital gold, I think there is a lot for this industry to evolve. But I think my last question to you would be, if I were an emerging artist or I'm a musician, walk me through the process. If I wanted to get involved with NFTs, how do they do that? They go to one of these. How do they do that?
So that's pretty simple, actually. I actually minted one early on just to see if I could do it. And if I can do it, anyone can do it. Honestly, I can barely make coffee. A lot of these sites like Rarible, they just have a create kind of mechanism, and you go in there and you upload and you mint, and it really is very, very simple. And you can, combine the assets. You can do different kinds of media, whether it's music and visual aspects, and it's super simple actually to do it. And I think the other thing I really love about it, to circle back to where we started, is just the provenance itself. If I'm holding it in my wallet, and it's connected to the token, look, I know it's mine. I can see where it's been. I can see who I bought it from. Every time I go to a site, whether it's the Larva Labs site or OpenSea, my collection comes with me just by connecting my MetaMask. And it's all of that stuff that's really kind of inspiring and interesting, and they're easy to create. So I think we're going to see, the creator community really flourish with this stuff.
Awesome.
All right. Well, Les, with that, where can people get a hold of you or your website if they've got any further questions or want to get in touch?
Yeah, Twitter's, I got to really build my Twitter. See how dumb I am? I should have done that. I discovered this new thing a couple of weeks ago. It's called Twitter. And seriously, that's me. Oh, wait a minute. Crypto lives and breathes here. Maybe I should focus on this. But yeah, the website too. So it's wavegp.com. That's the company I'm part of. But yeah, I think I got to work on this Twitter thing, actually.
Yeah, be careful. You get sucked down that Twitter hole and then you never get out of it, especially with the crypto Twitter. It's
I'm there. It's
pretty vast.
Yeah, I'm there.
All right. With that, please, if you like these types of interviews, and we're going to have a whole lot more, please subscribe. Please comment. If you've got any other questions for Les, we'll forward them to him. And on behalf of Amanda and I, thank you very much for watching.
Thanks, Mark and Amanda. Thank you, Les.